Hey, welcome to the Explainer. If you're prepping for your ortho exams, you've definitely come to the right place. Today, we're tackling a huge topic, an absolute cornerstone of orthodontics, anchorage. Mastering this is key to everything.
All right, let's kick things off with a question that's, well, at the heart of everything an orthodontist does. How in the world do you move just one tooth without all the others deciding to tag along for the ride?
The answer, my friends, is anchorage. And the name says it all, right? It's just like a ship's anchor. You drop it down to create a fixed, stable point so you can pull against it. The entire concept is about resisting that unwanted, reactive movement. So why is this such a big deal? Honestly, it all comes down to one guy, Isaac Newton. You remember his third law, right? For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. That's not just a physics textbook thing, it is the rule book for orthodontics. You push or pull a tooth, that's your action. The reaction, that force gets applied right back onto whatever you're pulling from. Mess up your anchorage, and suddenly your anchor teeth are moving just as much as the tooth you wanted to fix. Total chaos.
Okay, that brings up the million-dollar question. Where do we get these anchors? What are we actually using to hold things steady in the mouth?
Well, it's pretty simple, really. We can break it down into two big buckets. Stuff we use inside the mouth, which we call intra-oral, and stuff we use outside the mouth, or extra-oral.
So let's start inside the mouth. What do we got to work with? Well, the most obvious one is, other teeth. But it doesn't stop there. We can use the bone itself, the firm tissue on the roof of your mouth, the palatal mucosa, and even the power of your own muscles, like your lips and cheeks. And here is a fantastic example of that in action. What you're looking at is a transpalatal arch, or TPA for short. Look what it's doing. It connects the two big molars in the back. By linking them together, we've basically turned two separate teeth into one super anchor. It's way, way tougher to move that unit now. But what if you need even more holding power, like serious, heavy-duty anchorage? Well, that's when we look outside the mouth. This is where you see things like headgear. It actually uses the back of the head or the neck as this incredibly stable, unmovable anchor point. All right, let's switch gears a bit. This next part is super important, especially for your exams. We're going to talk about how we classify anchorage, not just by where it is, but by how it works against the forces we apply. Okay, first up, we've got a pair you absolutely need to know: simple versus stationary anchorage. Think of it like this. With simple anchorage, we're just trying to stop the anchor tooth from tipping over. But with stationary anchorage, we're preventing the entire tooth from sliding, what we call bodily movement. And as you can guess, it's a lot harder to stop a whole tooth from sliding than it is to stop it from just tipping. That's why stationary anchorage is so much stronger.
So, how do we pull that off? How do we get that super strong stationary anchorage? It's all about the shape of the wire. Check this out. If you put a round wire in a rectangular bracket, the tooth can still tip and wobble. But if you use a rectangular wire that fills up that slot nice and snug, now we're talking. When the tooth tries to tip, the corners of the wire engage the bracket, creating this neat counterforce that stops the tipping dead in its tracks. That forces the tooth to move bodily, and bam, you've got stationary anchorage.
And then there's this third type, which is kind of my favorite because it's so clever: reciprocal anchorage. With this one, we're not fighting Newton's third law anymore. We're actually using it to our advantage. The whole idea is to pit two teeth, or two groups of teeth, against each other so that they both move. The reaction is actually part of the plan.
In this picture, it's the perfect example. Imagine you have a little gap right between your two front teeth. Those teeth are pretty much identical, right? Same size, same root. So you just pull them towards each other and they both move an equal amount, closing the gap perfectly. Each tooth is acting as the anchor for the other one. It's beautiful.
Okay, so we've covered classification by force, but there's another way we categorize anchorage, and this one is all about the design. Basically, where are the pieces on the chessboard? Are we working in one jaw or two? And how many teeth are on our team?
This one's pretty easy to remember, but absolutely vital. If your anchor and the tooth you're moving are in the same arch, say both on the top, that's intra-arch. But if you're using the bottom jaw to move something on the top jaw, that's inter-arch. Think of those rubber bands that go from top to bottom.
And you can see that difference perfectly right here. On one side, all the action is happening within a single jaw. On the other side, you see those classic rubber bands for bite correction. That's inter-arch anchorage, using one whole arch as the anchor to move the other.
And the last piece of this design puzzle is just simple math. Are you using just one tooth as your anchor?
That's single anchorage. Did you bundle a few teeth together to make them stronger, like that TPA we saw earlier? That's compound anchorage. Simple as that.
Okay, now we get to the really cool part. Let's talk about the modern game changer in Anchorage, something that has totally rewritten the rules of what's possible in orthodontics.
You know, everything we've talked about up to this point has one tiny flaw. We're using teeth to anchor other teeth. And what do we know about teeth? They're designed to move. There's always a little bit of wiggle, a little bit of give. So that leads to the ultimate question. What if you could have a perfect anchor? What if it didn't move at all?
Well, the answer is a big yes, and it has the perfect name, absolute anchorage.
So how do we get this absolute, unmovable anchor? We use something called a TAD, or a temporary anchorage device. What are they? They're just tiny little screws made of biocompatible material that are placed right into the jawbone. And because they're in the bone itself, not floating in a ligament like a tooth, they don't move at all. They give the orthodontist this perfect, fixed point to pull from for ultimate control. And the best part? When the job is done, they just come right out.
Okay, let's wrap this all up with the key takeaways for your exam. You absolutely need to know these. Number 1, anchorage is just resisting unwanted movement, and it's all thanks to Newton's third law. Number 2, know your sources. Intra-oral, inside the mouth, extra-oral, outside. 3, the force classifications are key. Simple for tipping, stationary for bodily movement, and reciprocal when you want both sides to move. 4, the design classifications. Intra-arch versus inter-arch, and single versus compound. And finally, number 5, absolute anchorage. Using TADs in the bone is the gold standard for control. Got it? Good.
So I'll leave you with this final thought. Now that we have technology like TADs that give us this almost perfect, absolute anchorage, how does that change the game? What are the limits now? The things that were once considered impossible in orthodontics, well, they might just be tomorrow's everyday procedure. Kind of makes you think, doesn't it?